So I think your question is didn't we speak about last week? We said that uh, there's this conflict which is you have to cover, you can't cover your face as a woman on an ihram, but at the same time you you have to cover a bit of your face in order to not expose beyond the face, right? And then we said, so which way do we go? Uh, do we say, okay, expose more of your face so as to not cover some of your face and violate the violate the hurma of ihram, or do we say no, cover some of your face and violates the hurma of ihram because it's not as bad as the as violating the hurma of the woman herself, right? And so we said that's the case. Like it's more important for her to cover than it is to respect the rights of Hajj. And so she covers the tiniest bit of her face in order to make sure that her aura is covered. Does that make sense?
There's no like contradiction. Like why would like Allah order us to do something while we're actually violating something else? There's no like contradiction here, even though it may seem
Because
like
because
that.
because the thing is the contradiction is not innate. Contradiction is practical. So there's not an actual contradiction. It's just practically speaking, you fall into that situation, like it's either A or B. And so then we say, oh, this is how the Sharia works. What do you do in this scenario? You do this, right? Like
Okay.
you would imagine, I think it was Ibn Abbas or somebody else. They said like, I've never heard anybody who was more like chill than the Sahaba. Like the Sahaba weren't like neurotic about like details. And so you can imagine in their minds that, yeah, there's this rule and that rule, and there's a slight overlap, and that's it. Khalas. There we go. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like a roundabout, you know? In a roundabout, you give way to the person to your right. I mean, so then it's like, well, if you give way to the person to your right, and the person to your right gives way to the person to their right, then nobody's going to drive, right? So there needs to be like if you gave that to like a computer, it wouldn't be able to function. So you have to say, well, someone has to just start driving, like you just go ahead, right? That's that kind of like this kind of unwritten rule, like someone has to start driving, or somebody has to let the other person go, or something like that, right? Because otherwise nobody would ever go, right? So it's like an unwritten rule, and then the issue is which way would we go? We say, do we go this way, or do we go that way? The issue is that the um the here you can almost say preservation of ird, sexual dignity, is more important than preservation of faith, right? If you can imagine, like the violation of Hajj is like to do with faith, right? Deen, hifth al-deen, and the other one is to do with hifth al-nasl and ird. Is we're saying one is actually more sensitive than the other. If that makes sense. Does that make sense, Sheikh Yaqub?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Um, okay. ولبس إزار ورداء أبيضين جديدين ثم مغسولين ونعلين, to wear sandals is recommended, to wear sandals. وركعتان يحرم بعدهما مستقبلا, and it's recommended to do 2 rak'ahs before you enter ihram, and then you enter ihram facing the qibla. Um, so here, uh, and he says, um, في غير وقت الكراهة, you can't do it in the haram time. You can't do it in the haram time because why? Why is that the case, Sheikh Talib? Why can't you do the 2 rak'ahs before ihram in the makruh times?
Yes, can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum.
I can hear, yes.
Because the sabab, like what makes you perform this prayer comes before the prayer which It's the only scenario where we say you cannot perform it in the prohibited time.
Okay. So but the exception to that is what if I do this? So I'm in Mecca and I do this uh in the Haram itself. So is there any time in front of the Kaaba, is there any time I can't pray?
There is an exception with regards to the Haram, I think, but I'm not sure whether it's the Haram itself, the masjid. There's something.
Yeah, yeah. So the issue is there's no haram time to pray in front of the haram. Like you're in the front of the Kaaba, you can pray anytime you want. There's no you can pray in the middle of like the high noon, you can pray when the sun's setting, sun's rising, it doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. خير. عند ابتداء سيره, so you face the Qibla and then you start your talbiyah, right? لبيك اللهم لبيك. ويسن دخول مكة قبل الوقوف. It's recommended to enter Mecca before Arafah. So you're going to go there well before. ومن أعلاها نهارا ماشيا حافيا. And to enter from the top of Mecca. And to enter barefoot. And to enter walking. Right? So you're not driving and all things being equal. Right? And that's called Thaniyat al-Kada. Right? Okay. وأن يطوف للقدوم. And then when you arrive, you do your arrival tawaf. Um, right? And then it mentions as well when upon entering Mecca. وينبغي أن يستحضر عند دخول الحرم ومكة من الخشوع والخضوع والتواضع ما أمكنه ولا يزال كذلك. Right? So you should take on a state of humility and awe and brokenness, right, as much as possible when you enter this place. You shouldn't be like, oh, this is great, take a picture. So etc. Okay. And then he mentioned, then it says what? And then you do your arrival tawaf. And you do not do a Tahiyyat al-Masjid. So Tahiyyat al-Masjid, the Tahiyyat al-Masjid in the Masjid al-Haram is tawaf, right? You do your arrival tawaf. إن كان حاجا أو قارنا ودخل مكة قبل الوقوف. Right. Okay. So anyway, so you do that. Now the obligations of tawaf. Right. So here we mean arkan. We don't mean things that you have to do, but you've still done it if you don't. Here we mean what we normally mean by wajibat, meaning you have to do this, and if you don't do it, you haven't done tawaf. Right. So you can call it fara'id of tawaf, arkan and tawaf, something like that. Shara'it. So here these in reality are shurut. So he says والمراد بالواجبات هنا ما يشمل الشرط والركن. Right. So he says واجبات tawaf, number one, you have to cover your awrah. Right. So you got to be careful there covering your awrah. Number two, tawaf that you're pure, so you don't have any najasa on you. And they say that, for example, a little bit of dry, for example, dry pigeon dung on the floor is excused because there's pigeons everywhere. It's difficult you know. So it says here, ويعفى عما يشق الاحتراز عنه في المطاف. Filth that's difficult to avoid in the mataf is overlooked. من ذرق الطيور وغيرها, such as pigeon droppings and the like. حيث لا رطوبة, assuming that it is not wet. Okay, why? What's the difference to it being wet and dry and wet?
Effective transfer of
If you stepped on wet, fresh pigeon droppings, you're gonna get najasa on you? Will it stick to your feet?
Yes.
Right? So it's not the same. So what we have to understand is that they're always going to be measuring things in terms of mafsada and maslaha, right? So there on one side there is a maslaha, meaning the benefit is like it's hard for you to avoid to being so careful about where you're going to step. It's very difficult, right? So it's overlooked. But now we're going to look at different levels. So remember, for example, najasa when cleaning yourself with the bathroom, we're going to say the same thing. We're going to say this person went to the bathroom and then just sat there for an hour, and then all the najasa on their private parts dried. Then they'd have to use water. Why? Because now they've now made the mafsada, they made the harm greater. There's now more najasa that's going to stay on their body than before. So the same thing here, like we're talking about, there's different levels of filth. There's you standing on some dry filth, right? Versus you standing on some wet filth that then sticks to your foot, right? It's not the same. And similarly, وَلَمْ يَتَعَمَّدْهُ, right? So here he says, and also the condition that you don't intend it. What does Allah say? فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. Whoever is forced, right? This is what we're talking about. غَيْرَ عَادٍ وَلَا, it doesn't go beyond the limit, so it's not normal. So it's normal to have droppings there, not normal that it's just fresh. It's not normal that the bird did something on you, right? Like is it normal like every single time I did tawaf, a bird did something on my head? It's not normal. It's not like it's all over the place. It's not normal. Whereas what is normal and difficult to avoid is dry droppings on the floor, right? So here he says, well, on the condition that he mentions, he doesn't go beyond the line. He doesn't, غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ, you didn't want to, and you didn't go over the line, right? And he says, قال لكن في المنح والإعراب ومختصر الإيضاح أنه حيث لا مندوح له عنه لا يضر تعمده. He says, assuming that it's just generally unavoidable, even if you did it on purpose, it doesn't matter. So we're going to see certain scenarios like that, right? Certain scenarios, we're going to say, this difficulty is so difficult, it's just overlooked totally, even if you intended it. Like we mentioned on when you are fasting, right? And you're on the road and there's dust everywhere. Like you can't keep your mouth closed. If you kept your mouth closed, it'd be really difficult. Whenever you open your mouth, dust is going to go in your mouth, right? So we say it doesn't matter. It's overlooked. Swallowing dust while you're on a dusty road, it's just normal. So they said even if you intentionally opened your mouth, it's fine. Because it's just so generally difficult, it's overlooked, right? It's like renting. They say why did Allah allow people to hire or to rent, even though you're buying something that is not like I'm buying your service tomorrow, and your service tomorrow is not deliverable. So therefore, there's a gharar. Why is it allowed to say, oh, because of difficulty? So now that it's allowed, it doesn't. You can rent as many things as you want. You can hire as many people as you want. It doesn't matter. It's not like limited to just difficult scenarios. It's just it's just permissible. That's it. Okay, so here in the I'Arab, which is right, and the Mukhtasar al-Idah by Ibn Hajar, I don't know what this book is. I've seen it somewhere. I might actually have it, but I'm not really sure. Al-I'Arab, this is by Ibn Hajar and Mukhtasar al-Idah. He said, if it's unavoidable, in general, khalas, then what's it called? Even if you intentionally stood on it, it doesn't matter. Go ahead, Yaqub.
Yeah, plausible that there can be wet. It can be wet because eventually there's gonna be inevitably there's gonna be people doing tawaf while a pigeon releases some feces. So how is that like far-fetched? That
Yeah, but
or how?
what's normal is here's this large area, and every now and then, uh, every now and then this happens, and it goes there and lands and dries. So there's kind of like these two levels. One is much less than the other, and so it's overlooked. right? And here as well in the Imdad, Ibn Hajar says the same thing, it's all the same. وفي الإمداد قضية تشبيه المجموع ذلك بدم بدم نحو القمل وطين الشارع عدم الفرق بين الرطبة وغيرها وجرى عليه في مختصر الإيضاح. So here Ibn Hajar and other places, in two other places at least, says there's no difference whether it's wet or dry. But what I'm trying to say is the concept, what the fuqaha are doing. They're trying to say, look, there's different levels of difficulty and there's different levels of harm. So the difficulty is high and the harm is low, not a problem, right? But when the difficulty is low and the harm is high, the mafsada is high, it's a problem, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you were on my group back then, but like last year or the year before, I don't know, there was a really, really good example of that in the Maliki school about a woman going to her what's it called? Going to a funeral. It was like it just demonstrated the whole concept really well. It was like basically there's like um levels of her need to go to the funeral based on it's her husband, it's her son, it's her brother, it's her neighbor, it's just some random person. It's this, it's that, whatever. 1 second, please. One second, guys, just moving around. Okay, so we were talking about this how the fuqaha balance mafasid and masalih, benefits and harms. So it was, I can't remember the whole details exactly, but it's something like this, right? Where it's like, here is this beautiful woman. Whenever she leaves the house, everybody looks at her, and she's just gonna go to any random funeral. So like, where is the need? There's no much need. Where's the harm? It's very harmful. So can she go then? Right? So then it's like, no, she can't go. It's haram for her to go. And then it was like, then it was the opposite. Like, here's a super old lady that nobody would notice. And she's going to, for example, like her neighbor's funeral, right? And then so it's like, well, there's very little harm and there's some benefits. So like, yeah, it's totally fine. And then there was something like, she's not really beautiful, but she's not old, right? So you can imagine some people be interested in her, right? And then it's kind of like it's like her brother, or is it her son that died? It's like, so like your own son died. Like, how could you not go to that funeral? That's so hard. So then basically the need increases. So then it's kind of like, okay, she can go and like, I can't remember what it was. It was like maybe like for her, like makruh for her to go to her brother's funeral, and because it's not haram, and it was like permissible for her to go to her sons, because so it was like the harm is potential, the difficulty is now increased. So they just each time it's shifting to getting a new ruling. Does that make sense, Sheikh Yaqub?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's basically what they're doing, right? And everybody does it like across the madhahib. Okay, so that's whatever, number one. Number two. Number three is Ja'alul Bayti an yasarihi, to put the Kaaba should be to your left, right? You draw a line from your right shoulder to your left shoulder, you're hitting the Kaaba. Walibtida'u bil Hajar al-Aswad, and to start at the black stone. So it doesn't mean you literally have to start at the black stone. What it means, it only starts at the black stone, right? Just like Safa and Marwa, right? with Safa and Marwa, when you go between Safa and Marwa, it only starts at Safa. So what if you started at Marwa? It means it hasn't started yet. That's what it means. Like there's nothing wrong with starting at Marwa. It just means it hasn't started yet. Okay, والابتداء بالحجر الأسود وهو محاذاته بجميع بدنه. Right? Is that you draw this, that your whole line is you are perpendicular to it. Right? Again, you draw a line from your right shoulder to your left shoulder, you're going to hit the Kaaba. وكونه سبعا, and that there be a total of 7. وكونه داخل المسجد وخارج البيت. You have to be inside the masjid, but outside the sacred house. Okay, you're inside the masjid. So we have what these different circles, right? The big circle is called the miqat, and then the smaller circle is called the haram. You're in this sacred precinct. And then the smaller circle again is called the masjid, Masjid al-Haram, right? So you have to be inside the masjid, number one. But you can't be inside the Kaaba itself, right? Nor can any part of you be inside the Kaaba, right? So what do we say? You said you're walking around the Kaaba with your hand against the wall of the Kaaba. When you're touching the wall of the Kaaba, that's actually inside the Kaaba now, right? So you can't do that. So you can touch the wall, but you don't walk while touching the wall. So he says وخارج البيت والشاذروان والحجر, right? So you have the Hajar Ismail, that semicircle around the Kaaba, the Shadharwan, which now doesn't exist actually. So that's just now it's like it's a slanted bottom, right? The bottom of the Kaaba is slanted, but it used to be because you walk on it, right? So anyway, your hand is above that slant, right? You can't do that. If it's touching the Kaaba and you're walking, that doesn't count. Your hand is considered inside the Kaaba. Um, okay. Okay, so the commentator adds 3 more intentions. He adds 2 more conditions, sorry. Number 1, he says, عدم صرفه لغيره. So we mentioned this last week. We said that إنما الأعمال بالنيات, actions are only by intentions. You entered Ihram, you are now, that's your intention for the whole of Hajj. You do not need to intend each part of Hajj. Okay? You don't need to do that. So you don't need to intend anything as long as you don't intend something else by it. Okay? So, you entered Ihram and then you were being chased. Okay? You're being chased by an axe-wielding maniac, and he chased you all the way from where you entered Ihram all the way to Mecca, and in Mecca all the way to the Haram, and he's chasing you around the Kaaba, right? Okay, and as soon as you finish 7 times, he says, "Aha!" and he killed himself. And you're like, "What on earth happened there?" He's like, "Oh, there's some kind of maniac who wanted you to do tawaf al-qadum, right? Wanted you to do your arrival tawaf." So does that count? No, because you are running away from an axe-wielding maniac. You are not running, you're not doing tawaf. Okay? So yes, you don't need to intend tawaf, but you do have to not intend something else. Right? Does that make sense? Same thing in prayer, right? You're praying, you do not have to intend, I'm now doing sujood. But if you go down into sujood for some other reason than sujood, it doesn't count. Right? Okay. Excuse me. Okay, you can leave number 11. Okay, ومن سنن الطواف المشي, that you should walk, i.e. not ride. You shouldn't be on a horse, you know. Could you do it on a buggy? Could you do it in a car? Yes, you could. Should you? No. Right. Excuse me. واستلام الحجر, and to touch the black stone, right? وتقبيله, and to kiss it. ووضع جبهته عليه, and to put one's forehead on it. Interesting. والركوب فيه, so riding a horse, or so so he says والركوب فيه لغير استفتاء خلاف الأولى عند ابن حجر. So Ibn Hajar said it's not a good idea. It's not sunnah. Sunnah to walk around the Kaaba. And so, you know, if you need to be seen so people can ask you, Sheikh, I did this, Sheikh, I did that, that's something else. But otherwise, it's not sunnah. وحرام عند عند رملي. So Ramli says actually haram to do that. Right. Now, what's his illah? When Ramli says it's haram to do rukub, to ride, does he mean bringing an animal there, or does he mean not walking? Right. In which case, let's say, for example, can I be on a buggy? Can I be on a wheelchair? Right. Let's say I don't need to be in a wheelchair. I just want to be on a wheelchair. I don't want to, you know. So is it haram in itself, or is it haram because you're bringing an animal in? So you have to look at what Ramli is talking about, right? So anyway, to walk, to touch the black stone, to kiss the black stone, and it's going to say here as well. Doesn't mention it, but other places mention that women should not kiss the black stone in presence of men, basically. I can't see that here. To put your head on it. And notice even here it says يخففها بحيث لا يظهر لها صوت. I'm not sure what he means by the ha here. فإن ظهر كره. Anyways, I think he's referring to saying that basically kissing with a loud sound, that would be offensive. Oh, it could be, not sure though. Oh, all of these things. I'm not sure though. ويقبله. I'm not sure if it's talking about a woman or something, because it mentions a woman before. Okay. Anyway, those are the recommendations. واستلام الركن اليماني, and to touch the pillar before the black stone. والأذكار, and to do various أذكار. Those are الصحيح and those that are ضعيف. It's recommended to do these أذكار في كل مرة. ولا يسن للمرأة الاستلام والتقبيل إلا في خلوة. Here we go. Right. So she should neither touch the black stone nor should she kiss the black stone unless she is alone, right? So that's basically impossible now, right? And then it says, وَيُسَنُّ لِلرَّجُلِ الرَّمَلُ فِي الثَّلَاثَةِ الْأُولَى, to trot in his first three circumambulations, to trot in the first three ones. في الطواف بعده سعي, in any tawaf that's followed by a sa'i. So it's possible to have a tawaf that's not followed by a sa'i. وَلِلطِّبَاعِ, and to expose your right shoulder. Where is it? Who says طرفيه على منكبه الأيسر. Yeah. Okay. To expose your right shoulder. والقرب من البيت, to be as close as you can to the house. والموالاة, and to do continuity in your tawaf, to not pause. So it says وغير الذكر, a female يطوف في حاشية المطاف, a female should be in her own, should be to the edge. إذا لم يأمن مخالطة الذكور, فلو فات الرمل مع القرب Okay, and continuity is mentioned. وَرَكْعَتَانِ بَعْدَهُ, and to do 2 rak'ahs after the tawaf. Okay, and then he says the obligations of sa'i. So the obligations of sa'i أربع, أن يبدأ في الأولى بالصفا وفي الثانية بالمروة وكونه سبعا. So again, that's just a kind of technical point, that you start at Safa and to Marwa. So yeah, but even if you started at Marwa, it just wouldn't start yet, that's all. So like, I don't know where I am. Am I on Safa or am I on Marwa? I don't know. Okay, just go 4 times between these two things, right? I don't know where I am yet, right? If you go 4 times between them, back, forward, back and forward, back and forward, back and forward, you've definitely done 7, right? So it's either you've done 8 or 7, so in which case it's fine, right? And then it'd be definitely 7. وأن يكون بعد الطواف ركن أو قدوم, that the sa'i be after your obligatory tawaf, so you're doing, right, or after your qudum if you're doing ifrad or qiran. Okay, so you arrived and all you're doing is a tawaf. So you arrived, you did your arrival tawaf, and then straight after your arrival tawaf, you did your sa'i. That's fine. But you can't do that if you're doing tamattu, right? You can't, because you arrive and you do your arrival tawaf. Your arrival thing is now an umrah. So that umrah has its own sa'i that is separate from the sa'i of hajj. So you can't do that. And he says, وَسُنَنُهُ, its recommendations, الارتفاع على الصفا والمروة قائمة, to go up about 6 foot up, not 6 foot sideways, but vertically from the ground up to Safa and Marwa. والذكر والدعاء ثلاثا بعد كل واحد. Each time you should do the adhkar and make dua and pause. والمشي أوله وآخره, and to walk beginning and the end, beginning from at the beginning and at the end. والعدو في الوسط, and to run in the middle, right? So there's that little line. Do they still have the line there, Talib? Is it a green line on the floor?
It's on the ceiling. At the ceiling.
On the ceiling. That's quite clever. So anyway, so basically to run between those two things again, for males. Right. Adwan shadidan, right? So mashallah, Talib got to at least 20. You were at 27. You got to 27 miles an hour, I think. Inshallah, next time 28.
What do you
It was a
mean?
good sprint. Did you bring your track shoes when you?
I held myself back.
Oh, alhamdulillah. Right. But anyway, the point is, it says that adwan shadid, and you should run, right? You should run as fast as you can. بحسب طاقته بحيث لا تؤذي ها بحيث لا تأذي ولا إيذاء, such that you're not harmed by anybody else, nor do you harm anybody else. Right. Right. So and it says وإن عجز عنه لنحو زحمة تشبه في حركته بالساعي. Right. You should mimic somebody running. Right. Okay. This is ومكانه معروف. He says فصل واجب الوقوف. So عرفة. حضوره بعرض عرفة بعد زوال يوم عرفة. That you be in the land called Arafah, this area called Arafah, after noon on the day of Arafah. ولو مارا ونائما بشرط كونه عاقلا. Even if you're just passing through, you didn't stop at Arafah, or you were even asleep, you were asleep in the car as they drove through Arafah, right? بشرط كونه عاقلا, as long as you were sane. So if you lost sanity, that's something else, but you were asleep, right? And so what about okay, so then that basically is from noon all the way until Fajr. So you have noon on the 9th of the Hijjah all the way to Fajr on the 10th. وسننه الجمع بين الليل والنهار. You should stay there until Maghrib. والتهليل والتكبير والتلبية والتسبيح والتلاوة وصلاة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وإكثار. So you're saying لا إله إلا الله, you're saying Allahu Akbar, you're saying Subhanallah, you're doing لبيك اللهم لبيك, Salat on the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. وإكثار البكاء معها, to cry, right? والاستقبال, and to face the Qibla. والطهارة, and to keep on wudu. والستارة, and to cover, i.e. not expose yourself. So here the sitara is والبروز للشمس, and to expose yourself to the sun. So here this sitara is to cover, it's covering yourself, right? So you should cover yourself, and you should and right, and to expose yourself to the sun. So it says لذكر, for a male. إلا لعذر, and you have an excuse, كأن يتضرر به أو تنقص به عبادته, right? So you basically, you got too weak, you can't do any ibadah because you're in the sun. It was too hot, right? So there's actual harm, then you don't do that. But the point is, you should do that. وأما غيره, as for a non-male, فإن كان له هودج نحوه وقفه إلا ستر بشيء, right? You should do lots of good deeds, give sadaqah, emancipate people, right? ويتلطف في مخاطبته, right? And so then it says, da da da. وعند الصخرات للرجل, a man should be next to the boulders, not on the boulders. وحاشة الموقف للمرأة, and a woman should be to the side where she's not seen. Okay. And to join between Asr and Dhuhr and Asr if you are a traveler. So if you're not a traveler, you cannot join like that. Okay. وتأخير المغرب إلى العشاء للمسافر ليجمعهما بمزدلفة. Same thing. So Maghrib comes in, and then Maghrib comes in. It's now you've joined the day and the night, and then you leave, such that you arrive in Muzdalifah before 1/3 of the night has passed. If you do not arrive, if you're not going to arrive in Muzdalifah before 1/3 of the night have passed, then you should just join on the way, right? You shouldn't join at Muzdalifah. So it says هذا إن ظنوا وصولها قبل مضي وقت اختيار عشاء وإلا صلوا في الطريق. Right. وليجتنب التزاحم في الطريق. One shouldn't budge people. والغفلة, and you should avoid being heedless عن ذكر الله فإنه في مواسم الخير. Right. Then he says تتمة, side point. لو وقفوا غلطا بعرفة في العاشر. What if they got the day wrong? Everybody went to Arafah on Eid itself. أجزأهم إذا لم يقلوا على خلاف العادة إجماعا. Right. So he says if they were unless they were a smaller number, then it's fine. So everybody got it wrong. It's fine. Farid and Talib, when they're on the wrong day, everybody else had left. We're like, man, there's nobody here. This is so weird, right? And then the next day we're like, okay, it's Eid. It's like, oh, okay, what's happening? So we got the day wrong, right? So that's قَلُّوا عَلَى خِلَافَ. That's not normal, right? You guys are just weird, right? So there's a sense that you kind of not knowing what's going on, whereas everybody got it wrong. There's something else, right?
An example is quite off because we are not wrong because we're Shafi'is, but I get what you're trying to say.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Okay, and then he says فصل أقل الحلق إزالة ثلاث شعرات. The bare minimum is to remove 3 hairs. ويندب تأخيره بعد رمي جمرة العقبة. It's recommended to delay that after stoning جمرة العقبة on Eid. والابتداء باليمين, and to start by shaving the right hand side. واستقبال القبلة, and to face the Qibla. واستيعاب الرأس للرجل, and to do the whole head. I shave the whole head for a man. والتقصير للمرأة, and a woman should not shave but rather she should shorten her hair. Okay, and then just a little side point on women. So it says ويكره الحلق وأخذه بنحو نورة. Right? So for a woman to shave her head or for a woman to use some kind of chemicals to remove the hair from her head, this is offensive. بل يحرم, it could actually be haram. إن لم يأذن فيه حليل سيد. Right? If her husband or her master didn't allow her to do that. أو قصدت التشبه بالرجال, or if she intended to mimic men. Right? So now the scenario is she did not intend to mimic men. Right? There was no intention of mimicking men, right? Then this is not haram. It's makruh, right? So this is quite useful in the terms of like when we're talking about like tashabbuh bil kuffar or tashabbuh bin nisa, or when you say, oh, that's haram because that's what men do, or that's haram because that's what women do, or that's haram because that's what kuffar do. Usually with tashabbuh, right, it means niyyah, right? That was actually your niyyah, right? Okay. Excuse me. Then it says فصل واجبات الحج ستة. The obligations of Hajj are 6. So here we mean things that you have to do, and if you didn't do it, you still done Hajj, right? And things that you have to expiate by slaughtering or something else, unless you have an excuse. So it says, what are the wajibat al-Hajj? Al-mabitu bi Muzdalifa, right? To spend the night at Muzdalifa. وهو أن يكون ساعة من النصف الثاني فيها. So it doesn't mean you actually have to stay there for any time. You just have to be there at a place called Muzdalifa, and you have to be there in the second half of the night. Okay. ولا يجب على من له عذر. If you're excused, you're not obliged to be there, right? Say for example, whatever it is, you're sick or something like that, you're not obliged to be there. Okay. So he says here, somebody, for example, you have an excuse like the excuses of Jum'ah, and then it mentions ولا على من اشتغل عنه بالوقوف عرفة أو بطواف الإفاضة. You missed Muzdalifah because you came late and you're trying to get to Arafah on time, or something like that. Okay. I was going to say something else, which was here in the also commentary says ولا يسن إحياء ليلتها. It is not recommended for somebody on Hajj to worship on the night before Eid. So normally Ihya al-Eid is a sunnah, but it's not recommended. وَلْيَسْتَعِينَ بِالْإِرَاحَةِ فِيهَا عَلَى أَعْمَالٍ ما بعدها كما في التحفة. Right, so as the Tuhfa says, no, what you're supposed to be doing is relaxing because you're trying to prioritize. So this is, we mentioned many times, we don't leave sunnahs just for the sake of leaving sunnahs. You leave sunnahs to do greater sunnahs. So you are not praying tahajjud tonight. Why? Because tomorrow there's all these other ibadah that you need to do, right? So this is how we do. When you can't do A and B, you have to choose A. You have to choose one over the other, and you have to choose the most important. لكن قال غيره يسن إحياؤها بغير صلاة. So it says, so others have said no. It means there's no specific prayer on that night. That's what it means, as opposed to like doing dhikr in general. Why not? Right? Okay, and
I'm
you're not
sorry,
obliged to. You have an
on which
excuse. Go ahead.
night?
This is the night
On
before Eid.
the night before Eid.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is the day after Arafah, the night before Eid. Right? So, but for us, like people who are not on Hajj, yes, it is recommended to do that. Right? Go ahead, Yaqub.
I thought there's a difference between, like, I thought Ihya Layl was like a big portion of the night, but they should even wake up for Tahajjud at all. These the people on
That's the
Hajj.
default. Yeah, that's the default. Allah.
Interesting. Okay, but Ihya Layl just means a portion. Doesn't mean a large portion.
Ihya al-Layl means going out of your norm to do dhikr at night and do ibadah at night.
Okay.
ورمي الجمرات الثلاث أيام التشريق. Where were we? عفوا ورمي جمرة العقبة سبعا. To stone the last pillar on the Eid 7 times. Right? We spoke about delaying these things, I think, before, didn't we? Am I mixing up this class with another class? Maybe, I'm not sure. But you can do it whenever, basically. It starts on the midnight before the Eid and it ends at Tashriq. Right? Okay. وَرَمْيُ الْجَمَرَاتِ الثَّلَاث أيام التشريق, and on the أيام التشريق, on the 11th, 12th, and 13th, that you stone all 3 pillars at Mina. كل واحدة 7, each of them 7 times. ومبيت لياليها الثلاث أو الليلتين إذا أراد النفر الأول في اليوم الثاني. And to spend the nights, the 3 nights, the night that follows the Eid and the 2 nights after that, to spend those in Mina. So when you say to be at Mina, it means to be there for most of the night, meaning more than half. So Muzdalifah means being there during the second half, whereas what? When we say spend the night at Mina, we mean being there for more than half. So you were there at Maghrib, and then you stayed till midnight, added a second, and then left. Or you were there before 1 second before midnight, and you left at Fajr. Or you were there 1 second before a quarter of the night, and you stayed until there was a quarter of the night left. Right? Things like that. So being there, and unless you want to leave early on the 12th, in which case you don't have to do the 13th. والإحرام من الميقات, and it's obligatory to do ihram from the miqat, even if the miqat, the ihram, is valid from anywhere. والطواف or طواف الوداع, and to do. Didn't we do all of this? Talib, in my mind, have we done all this?
Now that you mention it, Tawaf al-Wada', we mentioned it. But maybe it's repeated, this section?
No idea. Anyway, basically, Tawaf al-Wada' is an obligation as well. This is for somebody who is, I think we did like 2 weeks ago or something. Basically, so anybody who wants to leave Mecca, so he says, على كل من أراد مفارقة مكة من حاج ومعتمر وغيرهما مكي وغيرهما. Right? So basically, we had these 3 scenarios. What was it? So it was somebody who is going. So you're going away from Mecca, from the Haram, and you are going traveling distance. You have to do your goodbye tawaf. You are moving away, even if it's not traveling distance. So you're moving out of Mecca. You're going to be 20 miles away. Then you're going to have to do it, right? But not the scenario where you don't go traveling distance and you intend just to come back. So going out of Mecca and coming back without going traveling distance, there's no obligation there. Okay. Okay. Let's stop here, inshallah ta'ala. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. My apologies if my voice was slurred today. I'm kind of falling asleep, so